Today we're checking out Kaya Spirit's Justice out of the new Murders at Karlov Manor set, and we're going to see what signature spell might pair best with her. For 2 white/black, she starts at 3 loyalty. Whenever one or more creatures you control and or creature cards in your graveyard are put into exile, you may choose a creature card from among them. Until end of turn, target token you control becomes a copy of it, except it has flying. +2, surveil 2, then exile a card from a graveyard. +1, create a 1/1 white and black spirit creature token with flying. -2, exile target creature you control. For each other player, exile up to 1 target creature that player controls. This seems like a really unique card, a very unique Planeswalker for sure. And that's my favorite thing to see when reviewing a Planeswalker for Oathbreaker. Something unique, something one of a kind. And turning your tokens, even non-creature tokens, into copies of creatures is very unique. How good is it? I don't know. That remains to be seen, I guess. The static ability is the fun part and kind of the build around part, and all the plus and minus abilities synergize with that. However, I don't think the plus and minus abilities do enough to maximize value on the static ability. That's where the signature spell comes in. Usually for these videos, I look at the most commonly used signature spell with the Planeswalker, but because this is so new, there's really no data on that. So I'll just do it the old-fashioned way and brainstorm some ideas myself. We could pick a signature spell that makes tokens, something that we can turn into stuff later with the static ability. One of these generically good token maker cards would be good, especially if we're doing a token theme deck, and having that static ability as a nice thing the deck can do but not necessarily focuses on. If that's the case, then we're going to want creatures in the deck that make tokens that we can turn our tokens into later. Bonus points to creatures that make tokens when they deal combat damage and not enter the battlefield, because you won't get ETB triggers. Another token making option is Awaken the Erstwhile, a sorcery for 5. Each player discards all the cards in their hand, then creates that many 2/2 black zombie creature tokens. This is kind of an interesting option. Yes, it gets you tokens, but it also lets you discard, kind of makes you discard, creatures in your hand. If you've got ways to exile those creatures from your graveyard, then you can turn your tokens into something better later. In the same vein, a board wipe that creates tokens could work. I like Tegwill's Scouring for 6 mana. You may cast it as though it had flash by tapping 3 untapped creatures you control with flying, in addition to paying its other costs. Destroy all creatures. Create 3 1/1 black fairy rogue creature tokens with flying. Necrotic Hex and Martial Coup could also work for that, although I don't love the 7 mana cost. If we wanted a really cheap signature spell that made tokens, how about Fungal Infection, an instant for black? Target creature gets -X/-X until end of turn. Create a 1/1 green sapperling creature token. So sometimes you can pick off a little mana dork or something like that, and then make your token. Don't forget that Kaya's static ability works with non-creature tokens, so this works with cards that make treasures or food or anything like that. I don't think there's very many good options here, but I do like Deadly Derision. For 4 mana, it's an instant that destroys target creature or planeswalker. Create a treasure token. Going in a different direction with signature spells, we could focus on getting a really good creature into our graveyard to exile with something else. Entomb is the best option for sure on this. An instant for black mana, searches your library for a creature card, any card actually, and puts it into your graveyard. Unmarked Grave would also work. Sorcery for 2 mana, search your library for a non-legendary card and put it into your graveyard. It's just strictly worse. Buried Alive for 3 mana, searches your library for up to 3 creature cards and puts them into your graveyard. And Final Parting for 5 mana, search your library for 2 cards, put one into your hand and the other into your graveyard. Vampiric Tutor is worth a mention too. It searches your library for a card and puts it on top of your library, then you lose 2 life. If we need a bomb creature in our graveyard, we can then +2 to surveil this into the graveyard. But if we needed a specific card in our hand to get us out of a bind, that's good for that too. We can just draw the card. I like that versatility, so this is probably one of my favorite options. Mill is also an option. Rashaka's Secret is a discard spell. Grisly Spectacle is a kill spell. Atrocious Experiment is a draw spell. None of them mill enough cards to really do it for me. The only one I really like is Incarnation Technique. For 5 mana, mill 5 cards, then return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. And it has Demonstrate, so when you cast this spell, you may copy it. If you do, choose an opponent to also copy it. This lets you mill 10 cards, reanimate 2 of them, and hopefully still have a couple creatures in your graveyard for use later on Kaya's static ability. Okay, now we're getting into some of what I think are the better options here. For starters, we've got cards that exile a card from a graveyard and make a token. Shamble Back for black, exile target creature card from a graveyard, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield, you gain 2 life. Beckon Apparition for a white-black hybrid. Exile target card from a graveyard, create a 1/1 white and black spirit creature token with flying. Unfortunately, the creatures that these two cards make cannot be turned into copies on the same turn that you cast the card that made the token. Unless, I guess, you cast the signature spell again afterward. There's a few other notable cards that exile cards in graveyards weigh down for a single black mana. As an additional cost to cast this spell, exile a creature card from your graveyard. Target creature gets -3/-3 until end of turn. Concentrate for 2 mana, exile target card from a graveyard, draw a card, but it also has Consume for 4 mana. Target player sacrifices a creature with the greatest power among creatures they control. You gain life equal to its power. And Cremate for black. Exile target card from a graveyard, draw a card. There's even Shadow of the Enemy for a quite a bit higher 6 mana. Exile all creature cards from target player's graveyard. You may cast spells from among those cards for as long as they remain exiled, and mana of any type can be spent to cast them. Now for my favorite batch, including my favorite option, Cloud Shift, an instant for white. Exile target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under your control. That's right, blinking triggers the static ability. This could make for a really fun build where you've got ETB triggers and creatures making tokens when they enter the battlefield, and turning your tokens into those creatures that you blink. Seems really fun, really good, and very fun to build. Other options include Acrobatic Maneuver, an instant for 3, exile target creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control, draw a card. And Eerie Interlude, an instant for 3, exile any number of target creatures you control. Return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. Now for the second batch of board wipes that might synergize with Kaya even better, that is exile board wipes, because they trigger the static ability. Sunfall for 5 mana, exiles all creatures, then Incubate X, where X is the number of creatures exiled this way. I really like this one. Pretty affordable mana cost, it triggers the ability, it makes a token for you to use later if you need to. You don't even need to flip the token. Descend Upon the Sinful for 6 mana, exiles all creatures, and makes you a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying if there are 4 or more card types among card types in your graveyard. And the truly incredible board wipe for this deck is Farewell, a sorcery for 6. Choose 1 or more. Exile all artifacts, exile all creatures, exile all enchantments, exile all graveyards. So this can be a board wipe that exiles creatures that will trigger the static ability, but can also take out other stuff too. And importantly, it can take out graveyards. If you exile your graveyard with this, you can trigger the ability. Very important to note though, if we're picking a signature spell that exiles all creatures, then the target for the static ability on Kaya has to be a non-creature token. We have to be targeting, blood tokens or clue tokens or treasure tokens, stuff like that, because the creatures are going to get exiled. And what good will that do us? If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more Oathbreaker content. I've got a whole bunch of these videos, so if you want to see more videos like this, check out my channel. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you next time.